It's all right.
He wanted puppy.
You wanted Poppy.
He didn't call for me. He called to talk about me.
Yo.
Oh, we're back, but
Uh,
only a few of us are back.
I see MUGA. I don't know who or what that is.
Hey there.
Mugga, Mugga. That's that's secret Barry. Barry just doesn't want us to know who he is.
Okay.
So can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yep. No problem.
I can hear both of you.
Well, that's always good.
Well, generally.
Okay.
There was a, this was a long time ago, and there was a guy that was the head of transportation, and he was being chewed out mercilessly by his area manager. And he kind of smoked a pipe most of the time, and he was sitting there tapping his foot like he was listening to music. Wasn't paying a bit of attention to the guy who was just ragging on him mercilessly at high volume. And finally, the guy just went and walked away and left him. And the guy was still tapping his foot, smoking his pipe. So I guess not hearing people sometimes is an advantage.
Yeah. Edison claimed that it helped him with being a telegrapher. He was apparently from his teenage years was um, just deaf as a stone, and but he said that it helped him concentrate because he couldn't hear the background noise, but the click click, and they were using clickers, not buzzers then. The click click of the telegraph sounder came through, and so it was real advantage to him. Of course, anybody who's been married for any period of time realizes that being slightly hearing challenged has some advantages also.
At your own peril.
Well, that's true.
Sometimes.
I think the Supreme Court Justice Ruth Ginsburg, she was giving some advice on how do you stay married for a long time. And she said sometimes you need to be a little deaf.
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't rise to the occasion.
Pick your battles.
Unfortunately, I know it's a character flaw, but I can't do that.
You
If
can't
I
do
see-
that.
If I see a red flag like 200 miles away, I gotta react.
God, you be in a lot of debates.
You know,
Well,
I know I should.
You know, I think about my youngest son and my wife. They like to debate, you know, and sometimes I'm in it, but I'm kind of task oriented. I have these things I need to do, so I just can't hang around. And it's easier just to say nothing and just move on, even though I totally disagree.
yeah.
I worked for a guy who said arguing with you is like wrestling with a pig in the mud. After 2 hours, you figure out the pig likes it.
Oh,
Did you get your postfix problem fixed?
no, we're still on that. We're exchanging messages. I think it has something to do with configuration somewhere. But we're still walking through it. Email, especially if it's treacherous.
Yeah.
Lots of things can go wrong. And even when things go right, you have problems, but So I got my new Ubuntu server, and I'm gonna use Postfix for email. You can
get
go to cloud mail and all that kind of stuff. I like to have my own stuff because I like to control it. Gmail is better, but still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, up to the point
Let me see.
Gmail starts hiding your mail.
What's that?
I said up until the point where Gmail starts hiding mail, filtering it out based on topic subjects.
Yeah. They look at everything. I got a 3-minute video. See, I'm following my youngest son advice. So I'm going to share that with you for a second.
Okay.
I should be on the right screen, though. Oh, there it is. I had some old batteries.
Here's some sealed lead acid batteries that were given to me a couple of years ago, and I'm repurposing them now. I put some of them into UPS power supply, and right now you see this one where I'm charging these two, and one of them I'm going to use to power a battery-powered air pump, and I can use it to put air in tires or put air in the wheelbarrow. Okay, I've got the battery hooked up to the air compressor, and I'm going to turn the switch on now. And I turned it off. I look at the gauge. I still need a little bit more pressure. So what you have is a battery, sealed lead acid battery connected to a air compressor, and instead of plugging this into the car and having to have it run and fill the tire, it's going to take a little bit more time to bring it up to pressure, but this just shows how it can be done.
This was it was a practical kind of thing. In particular, my wheelbarrow, it's got one of these rubber tires, and every time I take it out, I have to pump it up and then I have to plug it into a cigarette lighter. So just cut the cigarette lighter end off of it. And Steve, the guy that's helping me with the Postfix, he gave us some of those. Some of the rest of you might have gotten some too, but he gave us those batteries a couple of years ago. And I had quite a few of them. They were just sitting in the corner. So I had one of my UPS power supplies went out. So I took a couple of them and I put it in there. And then I decided to charge them all. And then I thought about this tire business here. So it just kind of solved the problem. Don't have to have the car running. And I can just connect it to one of these batteries and go. You could also use it for a power supply if you had something like a Arduino project and you wanted backup or something like that. So just trying to figure out ways to do stuff with stuff that's in the basement.
Those little UPS batteries are great for jumping a Prius. It only takes one.
One?
Yep.
I would think you need a couple of them in parallel.
That's fine. Because usually the big issue with the Prius is all you got to do is throw the relay to engage the main battery pack. So you just need the 12 volts to flip the relay over. Once you get the main battery pack in, the car comes on, it'll charge the 12 volt auxiliary back up. It's awesome.
So those are 12-volt batteries, are they, Frank?
12 volts. They're really the same size. You have these UPS interruptible power supplies, and they have all kinds of designations for them, but most of these things are pretty much the same size. And so I had one of those things go bad, and it was the batteries, and I took a couple of them and put it in there, and you know, it just works.
Those look like the gel, lead acid gel batteries. They were, my dad years ago had an electric wheelchair, and it had a couple of those in it that you could, had a built-in power supply also. You could plug in the wall, charge them up, and then cruise around for, you know, maybe a day or so before you had to recharge them. They were pretty effective. I suppose most wheelchairs now today probably have lithium ion batteries.
Probably, yeah.
The advantage of the lead acid is that they don't go up in flames quite as easy as the lithium ion do.
Yeah, a big advantage. Well, I noticed that Jim had put up the little bottle of slime.
Fine.
We have aluminum wheels on our Ford, and I don't know whether everybody else has the problem or not, but they gradually lose air. And so I went ahead and used slime to try to stop that. And what I ended up doing is paying like $120 to replace the low or the pressure sensor inside the wheel because the slime attacked it and killed it. So the mechanic had to not only take the wheel apart and replace the sensor, he was really complaining to me quite verbally about how stupid I was because I'm paying him to dig all the slime out of the aluminum wheel. So there are some uses for it, but if you have a tire pressure sensor, it probably isn't.
It's not for actually, it's not for use in cars. It's for use in lawnmowers, lawn tractors, and wheelbarrows and stuff like that.
This was a fix-a-flat is what I had used.
Oh, okay.
I could try that for the wheelbarrow. There's nothing lost. I had this thing about 15 years.
So what does the slime do? What's it supposed to do?
You put it in there and turn the wheel around and it stops up the holes. And
Oh,
it's not for anything. It's like fix a flat. It's not for anything that turns fast. Okay, like a car or a motorcycle or anything like that. It's for slow turning stuff. It works good in my lawn tractors. I have spikes out that I'll run into and I'll hit a spike from a tree. I have long spikes and they'll poke a hole in it, and this works good for that. But anything that turns fast, no.
You guys
One of my
you remember my old Chevy Astro van? I don't know if anybody remembers that or not. It had, when I got it had aluminum wheels on it. Really, really nice, fancy aluminum wheels. And I hated those things. I traded the guy, I found a guy who had steel rear wheels, and I just said, I will trade you outright for my aluminum wheels for your steel wheels. He cussed me the other day because of those wheels. Hated those things. They were always losing air. I mean, every 15 days or so, I would have to go and put air in those stupid things.
We noticed the biggest change is when there's a significant change in the air temperature. And when Frank came out with his battery operated thing, I've got a little air compressor that I probably ought to convert, just leave it in the trunk. Because invariably, the low pressure light comes on and I don't feel like spending $1.50 to stop in a gas station. But the pressure in it, when I can come home and air it up with a compressor.
So what's the mechanism? Why the pressure loss? I don't understand.
Apparently,
It
there's an
could be a slow
oxidation
leak, or it could be it's not sealing well around the rim, like you hit bumps in the road. Most of the time, you just don't bother. You put air in it, and then eventually, if you get really tired of it, just give me a new tire. Because actually, that tire that it was not on that one. On one of my other cars, I had the same problem. And a couple of weeks ago, I just said, I'm going to get a new tire.
So I don't understand why there would be a difference between steel wheels and aluminum wheels in terms of the tire losing air.
I think you probably warp those aluminum wheels a lot easier.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was told, and I don't know firsthand, but I was told that they tend to oxidize, and the powdery oxide allows a path for pressure to leak out.
Oh, okay.
So their typical solution has been to pull the wheel and buff it down to where it's clean, and then put anti-oxidizing material on it. That worked for like a year, but then we're back to the same problem.
So it seems to me like what the question is, what is the advantage of the aluminum wheels that would cause you to put up with that kind of stuff?
You look good.
They came with the car.
Yeah, they're pretty and
so
they're
darn good
lightweight.
when they're not
So,
flat.
so it's strictly cosmetic.
You probably have less weight too, so you can.
They have less weight, but mostly they look good.
They're pretty. They're pretty wheels.
Okay.
You would hit a bump in that van, and automatically, almost immediately, you would know you would have to go and put air in it. I mean, a decent sized bump, but you know immediately because it would just air's gone.
Oh,
You see why?
yeah.
Porosity in the cast aluminum alloy.
Yep.
Oh, so that's not surface oxidation. They're saying this is a permeable aluminum is what they're saying.
Depending on the quality of the alloy.
I need some of that. Yeah.
Question.
All I know is I was much happier with steel wheels, and my friend was much unhappier with pretty wheels.
Well, sounds like you skunked him.
He knew what he was getting.
Yeah, keep telling yourself that.
that was on, I think that was on the 96 that I had. The 89 I had was a workhorse. It had steel wheels to start with. But that 96, that one was built to be pretty and not be a workhorse. So I
So
turned
this
it
was
into a
another,
workhorse.
this was another cruiser?
No, it was a Chevy Astra van.
Hmm.
Just about the only Chevrolet I've ever owned, actually. I've owned a few more. I've owned a few Chevys, but I'm usually a Ford kind of person.
Julie's little Miata has alloy wheels, and we've never had a single bit of problem with them. But these Ford wheels have been problems since about 45,000 miles.
I think a lot of my problem was because I was using my van to haul stuff around in, so I had extra weight in it, and the aluminum wheels just didn't really like that. So
Well, I had problems with mine real bad where I mean, consistently on one set of tires. And I actually took them to a local shop instead of having tire discounters do them, and actually clean the rim where the wheel seats. And I haven't had a problem since. Because the other place, like where the glue and some of the rubber sticks and stuff like that, they never clean the rim real well.
right.
Hmm.
But having a clean rim even on a steel wheel is a good idea, especially when you put a new tire on it. You'll get a better seal around it.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's people aren't as quality work related as they used to be
Yeah.
20 years ago.
Here. This is, let's see. My one of my wheels actually did that, but that it was a spare. So
Now that would be an issue with or without a good rim cleaning.
yeah, that was one of my wheels actually did that, but I used it as a spare.
So did you hit a curb or what?
Yes, I guess. I don't know.
He was going down Top Hunter.
Yeah.
Well, I would think that your dentist would be able to tell you hit something that hard because you take the fillings out of your teeth.
Oh yeah.
Well, if I remember right, that rim was already damaged when I bought the van, so I'm guessing they hit a bump with it or a curb. I don't know.
How would you ever
Yeah, that's
balance that?
Do what?
How would you ever balance that?
Um,
Going down the road with the tire jumping up and down.
if it's a spare, it probably doesn't matter.
Well, yeah. Until you need it.
It's not a very good spare because it doesn't hold air. So it's just the extra.
You can save a lot of weight by just
Tire.
not putting it under there.
You know, everybody needs an extra tire that doesn't work right.
Yeah, I've probably a dozen times in my life, I've changed a flat tire for a flat spare. That is super annoying. Now I have AAA, and so I just call them up, and that's that.
Yeah.
Well, I'm kind of reminded of Arlo Guthrie's song, a motorcycle song, and he says, I wrote the song on the way down. He said, I knew it wasn't the best song I'd ever written, but I really didn't have enough time to write a better one. So I'm thinking, I knew it wasn't a very good spare, but it was the only one I had.
It got me from where I was to about 10 feet down the road.
Yeah.
I saw a guy probably a year ago or so. He was driving on aluminum rims with flat tires, and I'm just like, you're just destroying your tires, you're destroying your rims, you're not going to be a happy person in the end.
The thing I find amusing is where you see a car driving and they have 3 regular sized tires and then they have one of the little donuts. I think,
10 spares.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, they don't put spares in cars anymore. I don't think they don't put real spares.
And as I say, a lot of the newer cars too, especially like Cadillac, there's no spares at all.
Yeah. You know, I've got a spare tire for one of the cruisers came with a spare tire, but it didn't come with a jack.
Oh, so you just have to lift it up with your hand and
I kind of said, that's pointless. And it's a full size spare tire and it takes up every bit of the trunk. It's like, So I threw that in storage because it's a pointless spare tire. But I have an extra spare tire. The other cruiser did not come with a spare. It didn't come with a jack. It was just the way it was.
So what's the idea? If a cop gets stuck someplace, they send out a crew to rescue him or her? I mean, you know,
Call a maintenance shop.
Yeah, they'll send those what are those guys called?
Tow truck.
Yeah, there's an actual maintenance department that works on them. They'll just tow them to the maintenance department to put a new tire on.
I was going to say, it depends on the township and whatnot. They probably have a utility vehicle that just come by with a jack and change a tire for them.
Yeah. Yeah, most of the cruisers, I don't think they carry a spare with them. They just get on their radio and call them and say, "Hey, I got a flat tire."
I was in a high-speed chase and my tire went flat.
And my tire went flat.
Yeah.
Send a truck.
So the heat's still off there?
No, it's actually warming up in here. I turned off the heater when I was 3D printing some stuff today. I printed these cases that I showed you. And so I don't like running both the printer and the heater at the same time because they're on the same circuit.
Well,
so
the 3D printer draws a lot of current?
Only when it's heating, but you know, it's just something that living in this particular house, I have learned to what I can turn on and can't turn on that particular circuit.
Yeah, we have a single circuit in one side of our kitchen where you don't turn the toaster and the coffee maker on at the same time, or you got to go downstairs and reset the breaker.
Yeah, this is kind of the same deal. I've got a little refrigerator, the heater, and 2 3D printers, which I only really used one, but if I turn all of that on at one time, I got problems. But-
We're okay in our upstairs bathroom. We can run the radiant heat lamp, the fluorescent lights, the towel warmer, and everything works great until Julie turns on the hair dryer.
Oh, yeah. Those things suck a lot of current.
It's like, yep, time to turn off something and go reset the breaker because
Yeah.
I can't finish the shower in the dark.
Also, your light's on the same circuit as the outlet?
The entire room is on a circuit by itself.
That's interesting. Usually code these days requires the light to be on a different circuit than your outlets.
Did not know that.
Yep. Standard electrical code.
This home was built in 1976. So,
I have no idea what, local townships or counties, depending on who the relevant organization is, can modify the codes, but most places, in order to get a house insured, it has to be as the National Electrical Code, the NEC code. And then, they can put restrictions, but they can't loosen restrictions, so to speak. And and it's simply a matter of what the insurance companies will allow. And of course, the codes change quite radically over the years.
yeah, one of the worst situations I saw was in my stepson's condo. We were installing ground fault circuit interrupters, and rather than put not knowing where all the circuitry ran, rather than putting one in the kitchen and not knowing what was protected up or downstream from it, naturally nothing upstream, but what was downstream, we elected to put in one in the breaker box. And the ground fault circuit interrupter goes in the place of a regular breaker. And then there's a pigtail that comes out and goes down to the neutral.
Yep.
And so I'm in there in the breaker, and we hook that up, and two separate circuits both come on. And it is beyond me as to what's happened. All I know is I can't get out of the box fast enough. And so I have a friend of ours who's an electrician. He comes over. He said someplace when they were building this, they tied neutrals from separate circuits together.
Oh boy.
And yes, we could fix it, but we'd have to tear out all the damn drywall to find out where they'd done it. So we returned the in-box ground fault circuit interrupter and put a bunch of them in at the local outlets. It wasn't the best solution, but I'm sure we're not going to tear off every bit of drywall in the condo to try to find where they've done the cross connect.
Yeah. Well, they're a lot less expensive now than they were 15, 20 years ago. So it's not that bad. I had, when my parents' house was sold off, they had no grounds on any outlets in the entire house. And so I brought an electrician in, talked to him about it, and said, what do we do? And he said, well, he said, you can put ground faults in all of them as long as you label them. And they become 3-prong. And that's code. And I later on, when I was teaching introductory electricianing, so to speak, apprentice electricians, discovered that in fact that is NEC code, is that you can replace a 2-prong with a 3-prong ground fault. You have to label it, but that is 2 code. And so I was picturing having to rewire the whole house. This is 30 or 40 outlets in this house, and had images of ripped out sheetrock and all that kind of stuff. And that turned out to be a less expensive solution. It still wasn't cheap, but it was a less expensive solution. That house was built to code, but it was 1950s when it was built. So at that point in time, apparently grounded outlets were not required, or maybe not available. I don't know.
Well, if you think about 1950s automobiles, they followed the same quality of safety.
Yeah.
I put a link to a YouTube video that this guy, he explains the electrical system, and he shows how you can how the neutrals can be changed or something over in his video. He explains that we're not actually on a 110 system, which I knew, but he shows all kinds of neat stuff in it. I don't know who he is. It's just kind of interesting to watch. We can't hear you, Frank. We got about 3 minutes left or so.
Yep.
Yeah, just from a plain logic point of view, a lot of old houses had this pipe. You know, the connections had to be within a metal pipe. Those metal pipes were grounded. So if you connected your ground to that pipe, I don't know why this would be wrong, but you would be grounded.
Well,
You're talking about the ground and not the common, right?
Well, if you could, I'm talking about ground, yeah.
Okay.
And the common, what they do is when you have that third wire, that's just going to be grounded somewhere anyway. And that pipe itself, that metal pipe, I think that common became popular when Romex came in, when, you know, you didn't have that metal pipe. If that metal pipe was there and it went throughout and the pipe itself was grounded, then you had a ground.
now, Frank, are you talking about homes that were converted from gas lighting to electricity?
No. In the old, because I had one, an old house. There was a time when you had to have your wiring in a metal pipe. As a matter of fact, my son in San Jose, he has this now. They don't have a lot of circuits, and it's just a metal pipe that runs from each circuit to, you know, different locations in the house, but everything is metal.
So you're talking about conduit.
Yeah,
You're talking about metal conduit.
conduit.
The homes that I saw that had original gas lighting and had been converted to electricity, it really was piping. It
Yeah.
was gas piping providing the fuel to each of the lamps. And I can't imagine being the electrician trying to snake wires through that tangle.
Now, I'm not even thinking about wires. I'm thinking about you physically have a ground, because that conduit was grounded at the circuit breaker. The circuit breaker box, it was grounded there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a common, which is a ground. I'll probably go and look this up, but
Well, there's a distinction between a common and a ground.
enlighten me.
Well, in typical
15 seconds.
outlet box, the ground is copper, bare copper, and the common is white.
The common is also referred to as the neutral.
Yeah,